Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you coming in. I see a lot of familiar faces. We've had a lot of folks that have come to multiple sessions, and we appreciate you attending. First of all, just a reminder, if you are able to mute yourselves, that would be great so we can avoid some background noise. And as Emily does, I'm going to try to recreate the introduction that Emily does, just reminding folks that this is the 10th year that the summit has existed here in Arizona. This is the first time we're doing it virtually. So we've had some fun this week figuring out some of the technicalities with the system of Zoom and everything we've been doing, but it's been so far so good. So we're thrilled about that. And I'm going to stop talking here and introduce our fabulous presenter this morning, Robin Hansen. I'm going to let Robin do a quick introduction of herself, but Robin has been a presenter at our summit for many years and always gets super high ratings and reviews and feedback for her session. So you're all lucky this morning that we have Robin. So I'm going to pass it on to Robin and let her get started.
So good morning, everybody. And I'm especially excited to see so many members of my team. For those of you who don't know, I am the project director for the AmeriCorps Vista team at the Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits. And as Randy said, I've been a presenter many years. In fact, I'm not sure, there may be some folks on the phone that remember the year that we had the summit at Camp Navajo, which is outside of Flagstaff during the bird flu epidemic. So somebody is nodding their head, I can't see, but it was pretty darn funny. I ended up presenting, the choice was you could present in the officers' lounge or outside. And we ended up presenting from like the lounge of the Officers Club up there, which I think was tantamount to maybe an Elks Lodge in rural America. So it was a pretty great opportunity, and I'm so glad you guys have joined us today. There's a ton of people, and I'm so very excited. A couple things. You will see, I think the original title of this is your networking working? The truth is, when I submitted my request to speak at the conference, it was in October of 2020, about 6 months ago. I don't think any of us thought at that time that we would still be virtual. And I was used to presenting on things like how do you shake hands and how do you introduce yourself and where do you wear your name tag and how do you enter and exit a conversation and sort of all of those things that go with face-to-face, literal face-to-face, human to human, in the same room, 6 feet apart, but still in the same room. And now, boy, everything has changed. So I've changed the title of our presentation, so hopefully everyone will be okay. But now it's everything you need to know about virtual networking, because that's sort of the direction that we are taking. So I'm going to start out with, I love this. What are the threes, right? Wear a mask, say 6 feet apart, and don't travel unless it's essential, right? I'm going to flip over to my PowerPoint presentation, and we will go from there. So welcome and thank you so much. So it makes sense to keep our physical distance, but there's no reason that we're going to stop connecting with people socially. Networking is still such a critical ingredient in our career success. But it's not likely that you're sitting down in a coffee shop to have a latte with somebody. It's not likely that you're gathering in the kitchen at your work and talking to folks or going to a work event. And there certainly aren't industry conferences happening live as we are witnessing right now. So how do you keep networking? There are lots of relationship building tools that are still viable despite our current conditions. It just takes some creativity. So I'm going to start off with about 5 hints that you can think about during this presentation as we move forward in this virtual networking world. So a lot of people say it's tough to make small talk. But first of all, you've got a virtual icebreaker in a virtual world. These days, it's easy to check in with people and just ask them how they're doing. You don't need this brilliant entrance statement. You can actually just say, it's so great to see you. It's nice to find out that you're doing okay. Because everybody is sort of in the same boat right now. Second, everybody's became a Zoom master. Before the pandemic, there were lots of people, including myself, who had little experience with video conferencing. Whether it's your elderly relatives now that you're checking in via Facebook Messenger, or if you're a senior executive who is sorry, hold on just a minute. Whether it's a senior executive who is learning how to do Zoom, don't hesitate to use your video conferencing as a tool moving forward. It's the next best thing to seeing folks in real life. Number 3, all of our organizations are adapting to the new realities. I can speak to a Vista role, but I know that right now, many Vista positions are working from home. In fact, there are Vistas in programs that are not at the sites because it's simply not practical for them to be housed literally in the same communities that they're serving. Professional societies and associations, when you think about the organizations that network, they've always provided amazing networking channels, but they're not doing those anymore. I know that we're not doing lunch meetings. I know that we're not doing live team meetings. We're doing them virtually. And you have to think of creative ways to allow those interactions and quality networking among the people that you already know and the people that you want to get to know. Number 4, social media is tailor-made for this challenge. There has never been a better time for folks to use social media and get smarter about the tools to promote yourself. You might want to update your LinkedIn. You might want to look at your Twitter page. You might want to update your social profile with fresh content, connect with old acquaintances, send out messages to let people know what you're doing or what you're looking for. Share share an occasional article or a funny link. Make people think of you and keep you top of mind in their thoughts. And connecting digitally is one of the best tools you can use when seeing someone isn't possible. And number 5, learning-centered networking opportunities are out there. Given that we have time, since we're working from home, it can be a great time to learn new skills, get in shape, or explore a new career. Are there online classes that you've thought about taking? Have you researched all the opportunities to take free online classes to learn something? I know that we encourage our VISTA members in the Alliances program to look at the Arizona Commerce Authority. We look at the Arizona Economic Development Directors Association. We look at organizations like the Legacy Foundation of Southeastern Arizona to see what sort of professional development opportunities they're offering in a virtual landscape, so that while folks are at home doing their work, they can add to their skill sets as if they could attend a meeting live and in person. Most people right now are receptive to taking networking classes and to looking at opportunities to develop a skill that they might want to get better at. And honestly, for those of us who have tried baking bread, I fortunately have skipped over that step, but I am learning to do paper crafts because it's something that I've wanted to do. And this has given me an opportunity to think about how I explore that creative side. We're all making temporary sacrifices, but quality networking opportunities don't have to be a casualty of coronavirus. While power lunches and coffee and handshakes are out, there are other ways that we can maintain great relationships that don't require being in a physical presence. We just need to learn how to use them. here are our takeaways for today's program. We're going to define a little bit more about networking. We're going to talk a little bit about stranger danger. I'll explain that. We're going to explore the dreaded Zoom gloom. We're going to talk about how the new normal is virtual networking. We're going to talk a little bit about elevator speeches, what they are, how you develop one, and then we're going to turn end with why should you network? Why can't you just do business as usual? Randy and Emily are facilitating the chats, so they will let me know if someone has a question. So I'm assuming we are all ready to go, and with that, we're going to get into the session. So what exactly is networking? I love this definition. Networking is the art of making and utilizing contacts. The goal of networking is to create a pool of people and information that benefits you and what you want to do in the future. This is my favorite part. It's playing a host at someone else's party. So imagine that you get to go into a room, even if it's a Zoom room, you get to be your best self, then you get to leave and you don't have to clean up. That's how I want you to think about networking. And at the end of the presentation, I want you to think about how you can take the information you've learned and create your own networks. Does that sound like a plan? All right. This is our first poll question. So Randy, are you ready with the poll question? So the question is, how many of you are comfortable talking to strangers about yourself? And your two choices are, sure, I can talk to anyone about anything, and absolutely I can promote myself. Or choice number two, which is what? Are you kidding? I'm supposed to talk to strangers about myself? No way. So let's give it just a few minutes and we'll see what we come up with as far as answers.
Here we go.
Okay, I am loving the fact that there is an incredibly confident audience on the phone. And it looks like, gosh, it looks like the winner is, you folks can talk to anyone about anything and you will promote yourself, which means that many of you did not listen to your mom who said, don't talk to strangers, right? Randy, thank you. If you want to go ahead and close the poll, that would be great. So one of my favorite authors is Malcolm Gladwell. And he, in one of his early books, and I will tell you, it's a fascinating read if you haven't read it, but the book, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 3 different archetypes of people. He says, you are either a maven, a salespeople, or a salesperson, I guess, or a connector. So mavens make things happen through information and ideas. These are the people you ask when you want to know something about anything. They are always in the know. They are the builders, the engineers, the process folks, the systems folks. They are all about ideas and information. Now, I used to say in my live presentations that these were the people that when you want to buy a car, you have that friend who knows all about cars. And you can say, I'm looking for a 4-door that has 4-wheel drive, that I could use in the snow, that comes in blue and has leather seats, and they know exactly what kind of car you want. I think a better example now of the mavens are, and I'm sure she will hate this use of an example, but they're the teenagers who know how to TikTok. I'm not even sure exactly how to get in and look at the videos, to be perfectly honest, but from what I hear, these are people who make change happen through persuasion. I'm sorry, these are people who make things happen through information and ideas. So just think about that. Are you a maven? Are you the people that other people ask when they want to know something about anything? Then there are the salespeople. These are the ones who make change happen through persuasion. They take an idea, they make it sticky and accessible, they position it to get a tribe behind them. They're your storytellers and your masters of persuasion. But these are the people, according to Malcolm Gladwell, that can borrow your watch and sell it back to you. They have an uncanny ability to get you to buy into whatever they're selling, whether it's an idea, a plan, or a product. It doesn't matter. And again, I'm going to use Vista as an example, but let me just tell you, our Vista leaders are salespeople. They are bringing folks on into our organization. They're helping with recruiting. They're helping manage our Vistas, and they are making change happen because they have the ability to get others to buy into the amazing opportunities that national service presents. The last people that Malcolm Gladwell talks about are the connectors, and they make change happen through people. They galvanize people, they're natural hubs. That's just the way they are oriented in the world. They are people who every time you ask a question say, who do I know? Who can I connect you with, right? They are connecting people with people because they are all about the people. They're not about the process. They're not about the system. They're about the people. I always tell people, I don't need to know how to do X. I just need to know how to connect you to the person who can do X. And in networking, you want to position yourself as a connector. All right. I'm going to stop here if we have any questions. Randy, do we have any questions in the chat?
I don't see any specific questions. We have just some good comments. People are talking about their ability to talk about more than themselves is not a problem. Promoting an event or a positive. But yeah, I don't see any specific questions, Robin.
Okay, great. All right. Moving on. We're going to use the thumbs up and thumbs down, or you can use the thumbs on your screen. But really, who has experienced this? Virtual meetings are basically just modern seances, right? Elizabeth, are you here? Make a sound if you can hear us. Is anyone else with you? We can't see you. Can you hear us? Folks, I realized that you were looking at my ear because my video camera was where my eyes are, but I was changing the slides before I put my picture up so that you were looking at the side of me, right? So have folks experienced this idea around virtual meetings and modern seances? And really, I know that our Vista team has, and I know that I have personally been affected by that same thing. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about Zoom gloom. Again, how many of you are pretty much sick and tired, right? As we all heard and said, of virtual meetings. I mean, let's be honest. Wouldn't we love to? Yes. Thank you, Emily, with the fabulous St. Patrick's Day hat on, right? We are sort of tired of these. they've been going on for so long, right? That it's just exhausting. And I think we could all agree with that. I am sure that most of the audience who might have access to the internet saw the recent blooper that was going on where the lawyer managed to turn himself into a kitten and then had to say to the judge, "I'm here live, I'm not a cat." Now, 2 years ago, neither of those things would have happened. But that's what's happening in our current environment of being on video conferences all the time. There is, unfortunately, some bad behavior on Zoom, correct? If you Google Zoom fails, you get some pretty amazing things that have happened behind folks. Now, we used to see those occasionally. Unfortunately, they seem to be more prevalent as the year goes by. And I think part of it is just that Zoom exhaustion. It's all about body language. It's about slouching posture. It's about no eye contact. It's when you look over and somebody is clearly bored out of their mind. There are those soft voices. There's awkward gestures. There's something going on in the background that distracts everybody. And we have all seen it, right? I'm not going to ask who, but I can tell you of at least one example where, yes, there has been a naked guy go through the back of the camera range because someone didn't realize they were on Zoom when they decided to move from one room to the other. So we have all seen it, and we're all on stage. That's why we have to think about it. We have to think about what our stage looks like. And you guys can't necessarily see this, but I will tell you that my camera is on top of my screen. My screen is supported by two very large 2-inch notebooks. My notes are on a paper box turned upside down. I have a piece of tape on my carpet so that I can see where to put my feet, so that I'm presenting as if I were speaking to a live audience that was across the room from me. So here's how to level up how you show up on Zoom. Zoom amplifies your eyes and how they talk. Look at the person who's speaking. I used to always say, look at the back of the room and think of 3 things, like red, white, and blue. Hot dogs, flags, 4th of July. But anymore, you're speaking to a group that you can't necessarily see, in this case, as you're presenting, but live, you want to make sure that you're addressing at least one person. Periodically scan the group so it doesn't look like you're sort of stalking the person. Focus shows you're listening and paying attention, regardless as to whether you have something to say. Someone is watching you. On Zoom, you are always on stage. Good eye contact and directing the audience to the person who's speaking. Being intentional. And you know what? Give folks some feedback with your facial expressions. A small nod, a smile. I know it's really tough. One of the reasons that I'm physically in our office today, even though our office is closed, is because I'm in one of those parts of the state where occasionally you get the frozen face on Zoom and then it drops off because your internet speed isn't up to speed, etc. So I know that folks don't really like the fact that we don't always show our pictures, but sometimes we need to go from a bandwidth perspective and just use the picture that's on our profile. All right, sit up, right? Sit up straight. How many of you have seen someone on a Zoom call back on 2 legs of a chair and wished just once that chair would fall out from underneath them? I'm not being unkind. I'm just saying that, would you do that in a conference room live? Would you do that in an interview? Would you do that at a coffee shop? Absolutely not. You would sit up straight with your feet on the ground. And when you finish talking, don't get up and move to the Barca lounger or the couch, because it shows, unfortunately, it shows perhaps a lack of respect in the person that you're talking to and with. And you know what? Poor posture takes the energy out of a call and a conversation. Like I say, just because you're not physically in the same space doesn't mean you don't respect that same space. So sit as you would in a meeting, feet on the floor, pull in your chair, lift up your shoulders, and sit up. Now, I will tell you, I was watching Sports Center the other night on ESPN, and I was kind of stunned. They were interviewing Steph Curry, which is not the part that stunned me. The part that stunned me is he was taking the interview from his bedroom, because a headboard, folks, looks like a headboard no matter where you're sitting. And so he can afford to do that because he's an NBA star. If you're networking to build contacts and show that you're professional, calling from your bed, not so professional. Hopefully that will make sense, right? Speak up. When it's your turn to speak clearly, speak slowly. In fact, I have a little Post-it note on my screen this morning that says, speak slowly. So I'm hoping that I am not speaking too fast. Helps to say your name when you get ready to talk. This is Robin, and I'd like to add, and then say what you need to say 20 to 30 seconds, right? Be energetic, project your voice, and as we always start every Zoom meeting, right? Activate your mute so that you're speaking just when you're speaking and we're not hearing the dogs, the kids, the lawnmower, all of those things in the background, which smack of, yes, I'm working from home. All right, I'm going to take myself off of the camera for just a minute. All right, gesture and moderation, right? I'm looking. Apologies because I don't see everything that's on the screen. But if I start talking and moving my hands and they're up here, pretty soon you've become very distracted, and pretty soon you have what we call bird hands, right? So it's wonderful in this that I can gesture wildly beneath the screen, and it isn't as distracting as it would be if I were simply shaking my hands and gesturing wildly, right? So you want to make sure if you're gesturing, you're doing it in moderation. Set your stage, right? I've said that with your eyes, said that with sitting up, right? The stage, where you're calling from, right? I know it is really tough to work from home in these circumstances. You may have a very small corner of a very small room that you are working from home. But as Randy showed us this morning, Zoom has amazing backgrounds. So pick and choose your background. So we're not looking at the laundry room, or worse, we're not looking at the dirty laundry, right? Think about maybe where you'd like to travel. Think about what you'd like your background to be, right? Last, when it comes to Zoom gloom, is how do you show up? Again, totally forgot that I have two cameras, one that caught the side of my head and the other one that caught where my eyes are. But look at how you are appearing in that square. Your body language speaks loudly, and that's the impression you are leaving folks with. All right, Randy, Emily, do we have any comments?
We have a lot of great comments, Robin. Why
I'll get through a few of the comments, Robin. We had a lot of supportive comments of supporting the comments that you were making. People in particular that appreciated the fact that Zoom calls allow for less commuting and less time spent running between meetings. Alexa shared a funny anecdote about Zoom etiquette about an intern she had on a national conference with the camera on, who was eating Spam from a can and then fell asleep on camera. That made me laugh. Yeah, no specific questions, but some really good comments. And somebody said that pets in the background sometimes help break the ice.
I have to agree with the pets. It varies. It depends on, like, if you're in a team meeting or everyone knows you, absolutely. Who doesn't love seeing puppies or kitties or that sort of thing? You just need to sort of, it's like anything else, know your audience. If it's a team meeting and it's your team, absolutely. If you're trying to speak and do an informational interview with someone who's several levels above you, perhaps it's not the greatest thing to have a cat or a dog in the screen. All right, we're going to go on to our next slide. So, right, doesn't this look familiar? Like, there was a coffee shop once, we think we know what those were, and now there's like a giant red X across this sort of thing. So here's our new normal. We used to say very casually, "Hi, how are you doing?" Now, "How are you doing" really seems to sort of not be the appropriate greeting. It's more like, "Are you doing okay? How are you getting through things? Is there anything I can do that can help?" Right? Most of us are not fine. We are struggling with this whole idea of working from home, not having that interaction with people. I know that we are, like many others, we are not doing team meetings live. We are not able to see our vistas live. We're not able to go out and visit our sites in person. And so we're not fine. We are looking for, in our interactions, especially in those opening moments, kindness and sincerity and authenticity. And it's okay to say, "You know what? I'm dragging right now. Like, give me a few minutes, or let's swap a few stories about the funny things that have happened." I love the fell asleep. Yeah, I can totally see where that would be kind of funny. We're in sort of the days pre-Zoom. You could have fallen asleep and nobody would have known if you were just on a conference call, right? Ask folks, "How are you holding up?" And I think that's in this case, it really is being sincere about that process that we're all going through, trying to figure out now, as we may look at coming out of it, how are things going to change again? You're not able to just sort of pick and choose your networking like you used to be. You might need to network more. You might need to outreach more, because you need to reach more people, and the virtual networking allows you that opportunity. Networking has gone from face-to-face. Of course, the new face-to-face reality is through a glass screen of some sort. So don't forget that you don't just have to use video chats to network. You can use video chats just to check in. I know that last summer I took 3 cooking classes from, which were wonderful because they were also free. But it was an opportunity for me to see a whole different group of people in a whole different community in an enviable kitchen. But it was something totally different that I would not have ordinarily done. And video calls are a way to establish a connection and be authentic. Now, I will tell you that we have at the Alliance our round 1 and round 2 interviews. We used to do telephone only. We don't do live because we rarely get folks who apply in Arizona. But our round 1 and our round 2 interviews are now done via Zoom, so that we are able to interact not only through listening to the person and responding to the answers, but we are also looking at the body language, the expressiveness, all of the pieces that we've talked about, right? Eyes up, sit up straight, the information that comes across. And I know that many programs have used video conferencing beforehand. We were late adopters, but we're really pleased with how that opportunity has presented itself. All right, so that whole idea of what that face-to-face reality is. And even when we're able to interview face-to-face in a room or at a site or go out, I think we'll still use a tremendous amount of Zoom because it gives it that flexibility. Randy, like you said, it's easier. If I don't have to drive to Ajo to see a site and can see them over the phone once I've made that original connection, it's much easier. Okay. It's about giving, not receiving, right? Networking is not only about what you get from networking, it's about what you can give from networking. It's not about I need a job. It's about I want to build a relationship, right? If you want to be successful at networking, you keep in mind that this isn't about you. It's about building relationships, and relationships are not one-way streets. Now, I will say that National Service is giving you a tremendous opportunity in this time to connect with other people. I know that we have opportunities for our Vistas to connect with other Vistas. There are opportunities in other training classes and other programs for people to connect with one another. And this is a great opportunity to work with your sites to find out how you connect with other people, how you can do informational interviews, how you can get to know the other people that are in the organization that may be in jobs that you are interested in or that you want. And I use the words take advantage in that example of this is the moment to take advantage of building those relationships. Especially since you're not around the water cooler, you're not in the kitchen, you're not doing team meetings, etc. Does that all make sense to folks? And I certainly hope so. So make a list of the possible things you can do from people in your network. Can you connect someone with someone else? Can you point to a newspaper article or a paper that you read or a book that you've read that could help someone or that you think they might be interested in? Is there something even small that you can connect yourself with someone else and start that networking? Just think about that. One of the things that I find is very different about networking virtually and working in this virtual world is patience. People are, even though they are working from home or they're working remotely, they're overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have to do. And whereas you might be expecting a response back from an email or a voicemail within 24 hours, that is not necessarily realistic. Especially if you're asking someone for something, it may drop to a very low priority on their to-do list. So give them the grace of taking a few extra days to respond. If they get back sooner than what you expected, great. But if they don't call them every day to find out when they're going to respond. Don't constantly drop them emails and say, hey, I sent you this note, haven't responded, sent you this note, haven't responded. I'm actually, in some of my networking and some of my outreach, I'm giving people about 7 to 10 days to get back. Now, for my business, that doesn't necessarily mean you. I still expect you to get back to me within 24 to 48 hours. But if I'm reaching out to somebody, I'm hoping that they'll get back to me within 7 to 10 days. Does someone have so I think somebody might have a question.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat, and then Kathy looks like she has her hand raised. So Kathy, if you want to unmute and ask your question, feel free to do so.
So there's like a driving one, like so right here.
It looks like Kathy's not unmuting. So I'll read the question in the chat first and give Kathy a chance to unmute if she wants to ask a question. So Robin, the question in the chat was, how do you handle people who don't have access to a computer for Zoom? And do you have options to eliminate those technological barriers?
Wow, that is a great question. I know that from a technology standpoint, I'm going to assume, though that's never a good idea, that they have access to a phone so they can join via phone. they're not available visually. I know that we actually have people on the call today who have dialed in versus coming in through the internet. So that's one of the alternatives. I think that I know that in many parts of rural Arizona, access to the internet are really difficult. So it may have to be what you used before we went to Zoom, whether it's a phone call, whether it's emails, whether it's, do they have access to Facebook Messenger, that sort of thing. So hopefully that will answer the question. I think if you're trying to network with an organization, probably and not be able to come in through an internet channel, then you're just, when you get ready to join a call or you see something that you want to attend, to let the host know, hey, I'm in an area that has limited or no internet access. What's the best way for me to get included in this group's activities? And so hopefully, I'm not sure if that's Kathy's question, but I hope that makes sense.
Thank you for that. And it looks like David has his hand raised. David, if you want to unmute your line, you can ask your question.
Yes, I heard Robin indicate that maybe we might have to wait like 7 to 10 days for someone to respond, but that might actually lose somebody's business. What I would say to the people here is that, to sharpen your skills during this time, if someone has asked you for something, give them a timeline as to when you will actually be able to respond to them. Like, I'll be able to respond to you, by tomorrow or by this day with this. And if you can't, then always go back out to that person and let them know that you're working on that. Or you can always, just say, well, how about if we meet, and just set up a meeting, to either speak over the phone or something like that, because you don't want to lose time. Even though we're having, hard times and we're having to use these tools, we have to think of innovative ways to use these tools and stay on time so that we don't lose business.
David, those are really great points. I've seen a couple of things that I really like, which are an automatic out of the office message that pops up that says, I'm currently working remotely. It may take me, 24 hours to get back with you. I appreciate your patience. One of the things that I've done, and it comes out of years of having a boss who said, if you can be caught up before you go on vacation, you can be caught up at the end of every day. So I have always ascribed to answering my emails by the end of the day, even if it's a note that says exactly that. Look, I can't get back to you right now. I'm in the midst of doing something. However, here's my schedule. See if you can add, there's all kinds of tools out there where you can add your calendar for someone. I think that's great. I think also the waiting is when you're asking someone for information or help. Unfortunately, it doesn't work the same as someone's asking us for help, right? We want to be really prompt in our responses. But I do love your ideas are really great. And I love the idea of, a time frame. I think that's critically important. But when we're asking someone else for something, especially if it's an informational meeting or it's an introduction or it's something that may not have a time, that may not be time sensitive, we're hoping that they respect that and get back with you in a timely fashion. Does that all make sense, David? I think you had some really great points in there. I think it is important to be responsive.
Yes, that's all. Yes, Robin, all of that makes sense. Yes, but I guess just for me, and this is not a criticism of you. I think that by 7 to 10 days, someone may have moved on and gotten another resource by then. So so depending, so yes, we do have to be mindful of someone else's time and of someone else's priorities, because if it's not a high priority for you, it may be a high priority for someone else, and you could possibly lose business. So we have to so we have to make sure that we do not slack in our communication, even though someone else may be behind and having a hard time in navigating these tools and what have you. We have to make sure that we are on top of that. So thank you so much, Robin.
Oh yeah, thank you, David, and I agree. We should be setting the standards for prompt responses. I mean, you're exactly right, and I appreciate that. Was there anything else in the chat, either Randy or Emily?
There were a couple of comments just about how physically or with internet access with students, they would have somebody actually physically deliver a book to the student and allow them to turn in assignments with a picture of the product that was sent to the teacher. So that sounds like an innovative way to work there. And it looks like we have one more. Michelle, I see your hand. We have one more question, somebody raising their hand, so I'm gonna let them unmute. Thank you, Michelle.
Hi. Actually, it's not really a question, but one of the things that I have found frustrating with sending emails is I don't know if the person has actually read it. And there is a feature that you can mark that lets you know the person has opened the email or read it, so that you get a return. And I think that's helpful, because at least then you know that it's been read, and then you can kind of gauge how long you should wait for a response.
Yeah, Michelle, that's a great idea. I have, I'm smiling though no one can see it. I have several sites who aren't the most prompt in opening their emails, and I use that feature all the time. Partly because the other piece to that, and I think this is really critical, is sometimes I know that my emails go to spam. And so if someone doesn't open and read an email, then I sort of do the, I assume this might have gone to spam. And so I want to make sure you got it. And if it happens twice, you know what, I'll call and say, hey, I sent you this email. I'm not sure you're getting it. And sure enough, we'll find out it's gone into spam. But no, thank you. That's a really great hint, to go into your email service and figure out how to do the how to do the read responses. Thank you for that, Michelle.
And I think that's all for now, Robin, if you want to.
Great. All right. Elevator speeches, right? We've all heard about them. I don't know how to draw an elevator, so I do stairs. But an elevator pitch, an elevator speech, an elevator statement, they're called all three, is a short description of an idea, a product, or a company that explains the concept in a way that any listener can understand it in a short amount of time. All right. Now, does anybody on the phone want to give me an idea of where they think elevator speeches came from? And just raise your hand, and Randy will either read it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and shout it out. And there are a couple of different versions that fall into the elevator pitch history.
So I'll jump in on that. The elevator pitch, from my understanding, is the moment that you find yourself in a small space with somebody of power. So maybe it's the CEO, maybe it's a decision maker, somebody that has the ability to grant you something that you're looking for. And having just that small amount of time from going from floor A to floor B to be able to pique their interest and grab their attention so that they want to know more.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. For those, so I'm in downtown Phoenix, and I don't think, I always love the fact that we expect elevator pitches, but I don't think we have too many elevators really that are, and I love the description in what I had read was Manhattan. And I'm like, yeah, I think we have like 15-story buildings. So you either need to talk really fast and make sure you can get it and get that information out, or you need to figure out, something else. But Michelle, I think it was Michelle that answered. That was great. Thanks. I've heard two different. Does anybody else have, before I go on with a little bit of the history of the elevator speech? So I've heard two different versions. about the elevator speech. One of them is quite literally Otis Elevators, and the fact that they wanted to be able to show people that the new amazing Otis elevator could stop at different floors without falling all the way through, which is evidently something that people in the original days of elevators were concerned about. And so he designed this sort of mock elevator where he could demonstrate the fact that it would move floor to floor and not fall once it landed. And the idea was he was talking as this happened and it became an elevator pitch. That seems a little odd to me. The other one makes a lot more sense, which is in the early days of Hollywood movies. If you had a great idea and you could corner a producer in the elevator, like Michelle said, somebody in power, if you were a writer and somebody in power got into the elevator, by the time that, and I love this, by the time someone could escape, you had to wow them. So you prepared a speech that would sum up the movie. So imagine getting on an elevator, you as a producer, imagine someone getting on an elevator and yelling, "Snakes on a plane," and the producer saying, "That's a great idea, come see me and we'll produce it," right? So I'm not exactly sure, but that one I like better as a history of an elevator speech than I do the whole literal elevator. Though I do understand there's a third piece of that, which is in the sort of days of venture capitalists, the people who wanted investments would wait at the bays of elevators where venture capitalists and investors would get on the elevators in the morning and then quickly fill up and sort of yell at the investors in that short ride to get them to listen to their pitch about whatever tech organization they have. But whatever the history of the elevator speech is, you have to have one, right? And it needs to be just like our little orange guy. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you valuable? How do you paint an interesting picture of yourself? And how do you mention your professional aspirations and build rapport? Whether you're getting ready for a virtual career fair, a virtual networking event, whether you're thinking about writing your elevator pitch, you have to have a great, compelling pitch so that somebody wants to hear more or talk to you more. Hopefully we're all familiar with KISS, keep it short and sweet, but an elevator pitch is a short and sweet spiel about yourself, your experience. It's about a 30-second window that you have that you can make someone want to hear more information, right? It is getting in front of that recruiting or hiring manager and being able to instantly get out your elevator speech. You want to state who you are, what you do, what you're looking for, and what you need. It needs to be succinct. So you want to choose your words carefully. You want to think about what adds value to your virtual elevator pitch. You want to be upbeat and enthusiastic. You want to talk about your information so that it really does allow for an answer to the question, who are you and what do you do? Correct? Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you will be familiar with this next slide, but I will tell you it is one of the best elevator speeches that is around. And if you feel like using one of the reactions when I put this next slide up, please feel free. So how many of you, and Michelle, I see your hand up. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Sure. I just wanted to add the fact that one of the things that's really important about the elevator speech is the fact that it's a small amount of time, because you're dealing with people that time matters, and time has such a huge value that when you're able to say something quickly and concisely, it shows that you're somebody that respects that. And that's a huge part of not only presenting something powerful, but showing that it's like you're somebody that can be invested in because you recognize the value of time.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I have not ever thought of it in that way as respecting their time, but I'm totally putting that in my notes for the next piece because that is critically important. So thank you very much for that comment. That was very thoughtful. Do we recognize what this slide is from? And are we kind of going to agree, at least with some humor, that it has a polite greeting, there's someone's name, there's a relevant link, and there's an expectation as to what's going to happen. And to Michelle's point, it is short and sweet, right? So I'm going to give you now, I'm going to put the next slide up. And I'm going we're going to set a timer in just a few minutes. There are 4 parts to an elevator speech that I think you can use for, there's all kinds of models out there. Once I had an organization that I worked with, and we had someone come in and help us write our elevator speeches. And I'm not sure what elevators they thought we were going to be on, but they were like 3 paragraphs. Like I'm not memorizing a soliloquy to be on stage. I just need to be able to get information out quickly. So I love this model, which is I am, right? Your name. You might also want to put in your company name. What do you do? What are you looking for? And what do you need? I am, I do, I want, I need. So I'm gonna, Randy, if you'll set the timer, we'll let everyone go for, why don't we do 7 minutes? And then I will be asking for some volunteers to share their elevator speeches. All right. So Randy, can you put that in? And we'll take, like I say, about 7 minutes to write our speech.
Yep, I'll start a timer and I'll give folks a 1-minute warning too before we start.
Great. And if there are any questions, drop them into the chat and Randy or Emily will let me know.
So that's our time, Robin, if you want to take it.
All right. So I'm going to share mine. It's really quick and hopefully you'll know the audience it's intended for. So I'm with the Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits, Robin Hansen. I'm the project director for the Alliance's AmeriCorps Vista program. Have you thought about taking a gap year and doing national service? Would you be interested in learning about the Vista program? Right? So it's company name first, then my name. Part of the reason I do that is because people are not always listening when you start to talk. And would you rather ask them, who is it you work for, or what's your name? Personally, I'd rather say to somebody, I'm sorry, I missed who you worked for, rather than thinking, oh my gosh, was it Debbie? Was it Deborah? What was that person's name again? So I always try to use company first, then my name. I do, you know what? I use my title. I'm the project director. Depends on what you're using. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista Act. I'm the AmeriCorps Volunteer Serving With. What do you want? In this case, I want to know if people are interested in taking a gap year and being part of a national service crew. And what do I need? I need the opportunity to talk to you and tell you more. Does that make sense? So I'm going to pick on one of my team members that I know is in, but first I'm going to pick on Michelle because I think she just raised her hand.
Hello, my name is Michelle Series. I'm training at Banner University Medical Center to be a hospital chaplain. I'm looking for a position after I complete training. I understand you may have some openings I could apply for.
Excellent, because then that's kind of interesting, right? I want to hear more because I want to know what kind of training do you have to be a chaplain? I thought that just ministers were chaplains. What, why is, so she's shaking her head. I love that. So that, you know what, that does exactly it, right? Her company, what she's doing, what she wants, what she needs. It's very pleasant. You had a smile on your face when you said it, and I certainly wanted to hear more. All right. I can't see hands, but Ray, would you tell us what your elevator speech is?
Hello, my name is Ray Rooks. I am an AmeriCorps member working with the Town of Superior Chamber of Commerce doing business development. I'm creating a packet of information regarding starting a new business. Would you be willing to share information on that? And do you have an email? I can send you a quick note so that we can chat later.
Right. So again, Ray, thank you. I really appreciate that. So it is, do you see where we're getting this idea of that you want to hear more, that you know what the person is doing? I know that for our Vista team, and again, apologies, but that's what we have as a Vista team, we work really hard on that idea of an elevator speech, right? So that when they introduce themselves in the communities, they are able to succinctly put together in a really short time what they are, what they're doing, what they want, and what they need. And of course, you're not just going to have one elevator speech. You're going to have one when you're looking, for me, I have one when I'm looking for sites. I have one when I'm looking for members. I have one when I'm looking for someone to come and speak and do professional development, right? You're going to need a speech that gets you through almost any circumstance where someone's going to call on you and say, X, tell us a little bit about yourself. Randy, do we have anybody else who's volunteering?
We had one person that posted theirs in the chat, but we had a question that somebody had asking, how do you write the end of a pitch when it's for graduate school, like medical school or law school? Do you ask for admissions into their program? Any suggestions?
I wish my Vista leader was here because she's actually going to cover some of that in our next team meeting. But I'm going to guess that what you're going to want is information first. So I need to know who is the best person in the department to talk about entrance into your PhD program or information about entrance into your graduate school program. Hopefully that will answer that person's question. If not, to be perfectly honest, my Vista leader is a pro at graduate school and PhD programs. She just finished her PhD. My information is going to come up at the end, and I'm happy to connect you with her and ask for her. She has great information on how to navigate both of those systems. So hopefully the person who asked the question will take me up on that offer. All right.
Thank you for that.
All right. So as we come to the end of the presentation, let's just talk about why networking is such an important skill. All right. It isn't about just trading information. It's about building long-term relationships with mutual benefits. It's sort of the best example I can think of is if you've been engaged in a book club. Some of us have, some of us haven't, but it's not, you don't have to join every book club that asks you to join, right? You don't have to go to every meeting that you're asked to attend. You can pick and choose who you network with and how you network. The important thing is that you need to network. So the essential skills that you can develop with and through networking, first of all, is an avenue to exchange ideas. You never know how much you know without listening to other people. Success in a career is attributed to the pool of information and ideas you have garnered over the past. If you remember one of the first things I said, networking is about developing a pool of information. And so first and foremost, it's an avenue to exchange ideas. It gets you noticed, right? Individuals who have the capabilities to make themselves relevant by being that connector are the ones who have the opportunity to get noticed and an opportunity to potentially develop a partnership. It's an avenue for new opportunities. When people notice you, it opens that door for new opportunities. Businesses and career-minded individuals who network successfully expand because of the opportunities opened to them through networking. We used to say, and I think it's still pretty true, for those of you who are moving to a next position after national service, it's about who you know and connect with during your term of service that can help you in your next job, right? The jobs that are never posted are the jobs that you want to know about. Hopefully that statement makes sense, but you want to be the person that someone says, hey, so-and-so needs to be considered for this position that we are developing, or I'm going to let so-and-so know that this position is going to come up. Reassessing your qualifications. Think about during this time when you're networking, how you're using those networking skills and how you're developing more skills to make sure that you're able to move. Michelle, you talked just that little bit about becoming a chaplain. So how are you looking at what your qualifications were, what led you to that? How are you navigating that next career path? Improving your creative intellect, right? Aspirations and innovations form more when there's more than one person thinking about them. You know, think about people that have been able to share ideas that they've developed to foster growth in their career path. I'd like to think that we do a great job at the Alliance in our professional development for our members, but yesterday I was fortunate enough to hear folks from Arizona Serve, the VISTA program in Tucson, talk about how they develop their skills and their professional development. And there were a couple of things where I was like, I hadn't thought about that. And I was really pleased that there was someone that I could connect with that had information about how we could be more creative in our professional development. Extra resources, right? We all go to the web and type, how do we do X? But wouldn't it be great if we had a personal connection with someone where we could reach out to them and go, how do we do X? And not only know, but be able then to take it one step further and say, what did you learn? What can I learn? How can I make this and build on what you already have, right? You want to be that extra resource. The support from high profile individuals. This one was kind of interesting, but I know that at least for us, a lot of our members serve in municipalities. So while they are small rural communities, they are still working with mayors, city council members, the heads of chambers of commerce. They're working with the people who are high profile in those communities. And as what, almost 80% of our folks said they were comfortable talking to strangers about themselves. Get those same strangers who are in high places talking to you about what they do and what can you learn. That pulls in as well the next thing, which is the growth in status. You know, what are you going to do when your service is done? How are you going to move up in your career? And how are you looking to invest in those relationships that are going to help you move? Growing your self-confidence. That is such an important piece of networking when you sort of turn the corner and become that resource rather than asking for the resource, right? And the last thing is developing long-term relationships. I love that Randy mentioned the fact that the Governor's Conference has been going on for more than 10 years. I think I was at the first one. I'm hoping to be at the 12th one. It's about those long-term relationships, about knowing people and building those relationships and depositing goodwill into those relationships, and then knowing when it's the time to take those deposits out and use them. All right. We're toward the end of our presentation. So I want to leave you with some thoughts about what we've covered today. So first, you have a better idea of how to network in a virtual world. And when we return to in-person events, you can reach out to me and I'll give you some ideas on how to make a handshake work, what kind of interruptions you can make, those ideas on how to do tips and tricks on going back to networking in the real world, right? How comfortable are you going to be in implementing at least one of these tips, right? Might you reach out to someone and ask for an informational interview? Might you show up on a Zoom call for an organization that you want to know more about? Are you thinking about connections that you already have that you need to develop and about those connections that you need to make? Are you going to use some of the tools and the hints we've talked about to make your Zoom networks and Zoom calls work better? Or are you going to be the one where they're guilty of saying, Robin, you need to turn your camera on. Robin, you're on mute, right? Will you practice your elevator speech and be ready to use it? I love that I have read somewhere once years ago that said an elevator speech is the Swiss Army knife of networking, meaning that you should have several that you can pull out of your pocket at any time and use. And last, when somebody says, what did you learn today? Will you be able to say, I learned all about virtual networking. This is how you can reach me. Email's best. And I know from, I talked with Randy this morning, the slides will be available in the next probably 7 to 10 days, as will the recording of the call. I want to thank everybody for their participation and their engagement in the program. Let me stop my screen share. Randy, did that stop my screen share? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to look, but I can't see what you guys are seeing. So I really, really appreciate you taking time today. I know that there's some wrap up that Randy and Emily do. Are there any questions left in the chat?
Nope, I don't see any. We just have a bunch of thank you messages and telling you did a great presentation.
Yay, I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. And if you've got feedback, please let me know. And I appreciate that. And you guys have some wrap up that you do, right?
Yeah, Emily's going to do that now, I think.
Okay.
Thank you, Robin.
Robin, I do see actually one question. If you can give your phone number one more time.
Oh, sure. I didn't realize that disappeared. It's 602-680-7667.
Okay, and I'm typing that in the chat box for folks as well. Let's give Robin one big round of applause and thank her so much for being here with us. As she mentioned, she was part of the very first summit and continues to be a very integral part of the summit for every year as we're working with AmeriCorps members on what's next for their national service journey or as they're entering the workforce or pursuing post-secondary education. So thank you so much, Robin, for being here. And Robin is one of my favorite people and a great resource. So please take advantage of that email address.